Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Yuval Seri, and I'm the Senior Curriculum Supervisor of Israeli Jewish Culture, as Michal and Merav said, in the Ministry of Education. And in simple words, I am responsible for the compulsory Jewish studies in the Mamlachti schools, the non-religious schools in Israel. And in this evening, our panelist, as Michal and Merav said, it's Rabbi Lisa D. Grant, PhD. She serves as Director of New York Rabbinical Program and Coordinator of Special Seminary Project at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion. Her research and teaching interests focus on adult Jewish learning, the professional development of Jewish leaders, and the place of Israel and Jewish peoplehood in American Jewish life. She has published widely on these topics in a range of academic journals, books, and teaching guides. Lisa is joining us from New York. Thank you, Lisa, for being with us. And also Dr. Nevo Shimon Vaklin, which is a lecturer and scholar of Bible and ancient Near East studies, and the head of Jewish and Israeli culture studies in Ono Academic College. He is the founder and the head of Binah Yeshiva in Be'er Sheva. And he has worked extensively with various federations in the US and Canada. Thank you, Shimon, for being with us. This panel will tie together the three elements that the conference revolves around: Jewish culture and identity, Jewish peoplehood, Mifgash, and twinning. I invite you, the viewers and listeners, to write questions in the chat. And if we will have time, we'll ask our panelists to refer them later. So, Lisa and Shimon, I would like to start with the first question. In your opinion, what connects Jewish students around the world to each other nowadays, and what connects them to the Jewish people? Lisa, please.
Thank you. It's great to be with everyone today. I look forward to sharing. First, I thought I would share from a research perspective what some of the challenges are of connecting today in response to that question. So hopefully, these were the three questions I was asked to respond to. I don't know, Yuval, you want to go one by one, or you want me to do the whole presentation and then?
No, let's start one by one.
Okay, fine. So what connects Jews around the world to each other? So this is both a challenge and an opportunity for us today. A research project that I was involved with for the UJA Federation of New York about 2.5 years ago did a substantive study of Jewish people in America and in Israel. These slides relate more on the American side, and you see we asked two sets of questions, both around connection and a sense of responsibility. And so here you see in the pie chart, about half of the Jews, of the people responding, felt very connected to other Jews. And you can see that the local Jews, they felt most connected to the Jews in their own area, and the less connected to Jews farther away in Israel and around the world. So that's half. In the second slide, we see fewer people feel responsible. So there's an emotional sense of connection, but there is less of a sense of responsibility. So here, only 37% of the respondents felt very responsible for Jews around the world, either in New York, in their local area, or in Israel and around the world. I would say that these are some of the reasons why this is happening today, that we have moved away from some of the 20th century paradigms that shaped Jewish life, that were such driving forces: the Shoah, the establishment of the State of Israel, the fall of the Soviet Union. These are distant memories, things that used to build strong connections, are no longer part of the zeitgeist for many American Jews who see Israel as an ethnic state with thick boundaries, who are tend to be more liberal in terms of values of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we know that there are fewer social connections. The social capital, if you will, is thinning in American life because of intermarriage and a variety of other ways in which people express themselves as Jews. The meaning of being Jewish has shifted from being communal and collective. And I would say this is happening both in Israel and in the United States and elsewhere. It's shifted to the personal. Social identities are much more fluid and hybrid. And there are overlapping planes of polarization, meaning the more traditionally religious one is, the more likely one is to be politically conservative and the more likely to be uncritically supportive of Israel on the one hand. And on the other hand, the more progressive you are as a Jew, the more politically liberal you tend to be and the more critical of Israel you tend to be. And these are polarizing forces that create a lot of tension. So that is the challenge that we have today in terms of connection. I'll turn it over to Yuval now and see.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I think it was very enlightening and did a lot of. You showed us a very good picture for what's happening now. Shimon, what do you think? You know Israelis very well, and you deal with this subject. What do you think can connect student Jews, young Jews today around the world, and also to the Jewish people?
Thank you, Yuval. Thank you, Lisa. I think that there are some things that are going on that really connect people now, especially the young people. First of all, universality. I mean, young people all over the world have the same platforms like social networks, you know, Instagram, whatever. They know they have the same culture of chats, of you know, sports celebs, and superstars, and so on. We've just went through Hanukkah and we talked about Ityavnut, Hellenicon, Hellenicity, and eventually the Ityavnut of the Western culture of today should connect people all over the world. And guys from abroad, from America and Israel, have the same models in their life. And eventually, it might be.
Shimon, just to tell you, maybe talk a little bit closer to the microphone.
לא שומעים אותי?
שומעים אותך, אבל לפעמים זה הולך ובא, אז תנסה להתקרב פשוט.
אוקיי, אז אני אגביר את הכל. So, I think some processes of our days, like the social platforms and the common culture of people in Israel and abroad, should bring together the young people to understand and to have the same platforms and values regarding to many other things than Judaism. But there is some, you know, they are close. I think like young people in Israel are closer to young people abroad than they are close to me. Okay? Because we have a different culture, but they have the same culture all around. And I think they have the same things, and this thing alone can make them come together. And afterwards, I think they have both a common and mutual curiosity. I mean, Jewish people here in Israel want to know the guys abroad, and abroad wants to know the Israelis. There is a thing that I think, maybe Lisa won't agree with me, but I think there is a rebranding of the concept of Jews and the concept of Israelis. I mean, it's a good brand. It's a better brand, I think, now than in the 80s or back then. And people want to go together and to check, to acquire this brand. What does it mean? And I think eventually the most important thing all over, it's of course the text. The text, I don't mean just the text, narrow way, but I mean the holidays and the way we celebrate, and people abroad celebrate. It's really, really something that will always will bring together Jews. So Lisa talked about makes us be separate, but I try to give the mirror side of it and to try to talk about the things that are bringing together, especially the young people. I think Lisa is right, but I try to bring the other side of the same.
So thank you very much for that, Shimon. So basically, you said that in these days there is, like, we always talk about that the youngs today become very universalist, and the social media and everything, and sometimes we feel it's it's taking our identity as our unique identity, and like, you are part of the world now, and it doesn't matter if you belong to this culture or another. You say this is an opportunity to bring people together, and let me continue with this thought of you. And you part of many mifgashim, synchronous and asynchronous, and what are the differences between this experience? I mean, how do you see this? We are living in a digital era, and there is a lot of options to speak and to meet through the internet. And what do you see? What is the main values of this mifgashim?
You're asking me or Professor?
Yeah, I'm asking you. I want to continue with your thought.
I really think that there is a big advantage to the asynchronic encounter, because it's really the Jewish study, the Chavruta study, the Bet Midrash study is really about physically being together. This is our Bet Midrash. I have two stories from the Talmud. One story is about Rabban Gamliel after he tried to reconcile with Rabbi Yoshua, and Rabbi Yoshua admonishes him and says, "You don't know that I'm working with Kol. You don't know your students." So, and then the other one is with Hillel HaZaken, very known story. Hillel doesn't have any money, and he goes upstairs and so on. I mean, being close together, students with the teachers, is very important. However, regarding these questions about the relationship between Jews in Israel and Jews abroad, this is the bless. I mean, the asynchronic, it's so available. You can like, I remember like 4 years ago, where we tried to make a common Bet Midrash with people from Montreal. From Montreal, it was like the computers and how we are going to do this. And now it's so easy after this Corona and all these technologies. So I think it's going to bring us together. And I see a lot of common Batei Midrash are opening, and I'm really interested of what is Lisa is thinking about it. That's what I think.
So Lisa, like you showed us a picture before of what's going nowadays in between young Jews in Israel and young Jews in the USA. And what do you think about what is the value of this mifgashim and this era of this digital era? Does it changing the possibilities and maybe opportunities to meet each other, or I don't know? What do you think about it?
For sure, the digital era that we're in. I'm going from this conference. I'm going to a tekes haskara of a friend of mine's mother who died in Israel, last week, and so there's, I'm making a shiva call, if you will, in Ness Ziona in a few minutes. And so there is that opportunity that happens all the time. Shimon, I was a little confused. You were saying asynchronic, but I think you meant synchronic.
Yeah, synchronous. Yeah.
That in real time, a mifgash on the screen, I think is what you're talking about. And there's great potential for that. Of course, I'm sitting in New York and it's still afternoon and daylight. You're in Israel and it's late at night, so the time difference is always complicated, but that there is plenty of opportunity for that kind of activity. Let me just a couple more slides to share in terms of just giving a little bit more background here, that this we're moving I said that, what the challenge that was is turning into an opportunity that is, I would say. That this move away from survivalism and continuity as being the motivating forces is now moving into relationality. And technology is a great enhancement, a great way to build relationships across common concerns and interests, developing skills. Certainly, I mean, I'm all in favor of Batei Midrash across the ocean. I think another different orientation for young people today is this sense of belonging has much more to do with what you do than with who you are. So again, engaging in activities together, working together towards a common cause, and that relates to the third bullet point here, that the more you do things together, you build the social capital, you build the relationships, you build the connections. It doesn't have to do so much with what you were born with or what you come from, but where you're moving towards. I think that that's a big, big difference and has tremendous value with regard to mifkashim, with regard to bringing people together in different ways. So I think that there is a lot of potential. I would say, that there is another point which I wanted to make is put this in the language of education with enduring understandings, is that Jewish peoplehood is there is a sacred responsibility that we hold towards preserving the Jewish people, to preserving Yehudi. But that it has to be actively chosen. So that's not something that comes from me'elav. That's not something for people who, you're not born with that, you're not necessarily raised with it, but it's a value that has to be instilled. We have to acknowledge that collectivity is fluid. People come in and out, but that this is exciting, that we, in the words of Franz Rosenzweig, that as text people, we are continually working to contribute to the tradition. And it's through our differences that we can contribute, because if we confront our differences and note our differences and celebrate our differences, that just expands Jewish culture, expands our understanding of one another, allows for even more and more inclusion, which I think ultimately is a really wonderful thing. It just enriches Jewish culture and the Jewish people in all ways.
Thank you, Lisa. So I think you both agree that nowadays there is a lot of work to do, of course, but there is a lot of new possibilities, and the digital era and the media that gives us. It depends what we do with these opportunities, and I think this is it's a great thing to hear from people experienced as you in this field. And now many educators from Israel and from the Jewish communities are listening in these moments for you both. And when do you think about the future of the Jewish people and the role of the Jewish educators? What 3 practical advices would you like to give them? Shimon, you start.
I hope you can hear me good now. Okay,
yeah,
there is a problem okay. So I think we should, we are in a stage of the Batei Midrash and the new pluralistic Batei Midrash and so on, that we should bring some methods to the teachers, to the tutors. And I want to bring a method of 4 stages of the study session all over in Israel and abroad. And I think this method might connect both sides or all of us. First, I want us to all start with the academic or intellectual side of the text. I want us to know who are the rabbis we are talking about, what time they lived, what were the historical circumstances of their life, and so on. Second is tradition, the way the things, if we are speaking about holidays, how the holidays eventually is with its all customs and rituals as it is today became. Okay. Third is values, eventually study without any values won't be with any wouldn't last, and eventually relevancy. Okay, what is the relevancy of our times? Intellectually is very important because there are some precedent in the past that we can study from them. For instance, you know, Jewish streams used to live together side by side, respecting each other, loving each other, being Jews together. And later depictions of these eras told us that Sinat Chinam and Sinat Chinam, but before of the Sinat Chinam, during, for instance, the end of the Second Temple and so on, Jewish streams live together. And then you say, okay, why won't we live together? And tradition is something that combines us together because we all know the traditions and the way we are living and fasting, making the rituals and so on. Values is the place that we are bringing ourselves. A relevancy eventually is our time's drash. And we should put attention to this word drash, because drash is very important things of being Jew. And I think this in Israel, maybe not abroad, we kind of gave up with the drash. We are really afraid of saying something new, spiritually speaking, about the text. And for the teacher, I say three things. First, be authentic in the study. Okay, be authentic. Second, bring yourself and let the pupils bring themselves. And the last thing, talk less and listen more, because I think this is part of our new generation and our new thing. Teachers should be tutors. They should come with the text, just serve it to the crowd, to the people in the Bet Midrash, and let the people do all the work. They are doing a great job, and I'm sure, I hope he surprises with the to someone.
Thank you, Shimon, and I hope all of you wrote what Shimon says. And if it was too fast for you, you are welcome to be in our training of teachers. Shimon is part of many trainings of ours, and as you can see, he's really. I think Shimon in briefly said what we do in Jewish Israeli culture. Thank you for that, Shimon. It was very important.
Thank you.
Lisa, what are your advices?
Well, I will add, let me also just say that maybe sadly, text study is not going to appeal to everyone. And that's just, and in fact, it appeals to a minority. I wish it would grow. I would hope that it will grow, but I don't think for most people that's not the doorway in to Jewish engagement. So content learning is necessary, but it's insufficient. I think that's really important. Back to the ideas of relationality, building relationships. So how do we build relationships in a way that are authentic? Through shared experiences. And here too, technology can help us, project-based learning, through travel, whether virtual travel experiences where and this might appeal to younger learners as well, but younger and older learners. And through social justice oriented activities, that choosing a project that everyone can work on, that everyone within the group feels passionate about and feels we are doing this as part of our collective purpose, or our sacred purpose, even, if you will, as Jews together. We are working because we're stronger together. To do it as an individual can have an impact, but to do it as a collective feels much more powerful, much more greater potential for really making a difference. And it can be imbued with sacred purpose. I think that, again, as I said earlier, discovering or creating learning opportunities where we can find commonalities across difference and differences across commonalities in terms of how we celebrate holidays, how we pray, how we study text. Shimon gave lots of specifics there. and how we understand collective responsibility. What does it mean? The notion of ezrachut, the notion of citizenship on both sides of the conversation, that it's not always the same, and to engage in that kind of conversation with substance and with a project focus, I think can be very, very meaningful and fruitful.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Both of you touched opened so many windows to think, and I think we in every sentence that you said, you can study a whole course to develop that and to do that. Shimon, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I want to add something. I totally agree with Lisa, and I wrote a few things that I didn't thought about. I want to say that we have to do another drash. I did a few times back in history. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah. Zion is not only geographic notion or thing. And I think these days, when I want to study text or study a holiday or ritual, it means to bring out, study the humanistic, pluralistic values in it. And I think that today, Zion might be in America, as in Israel. So I think the notion that only from Israel the Torah is going out should be abolished now. And I think there are many advantages, especially from the pluralistic, humanistic aspect, that the so-called diaspora in America or North America and many other places in the world can teach us, the Israelis. With modesty, we should take their advice, and I took great teaching from teachers abroad, here from Lisa, and this Masoratic notion of Israel, the place of Torah, should be more balanced, like in Rabbi Saadia's time, or like in the Torah Zahav time in Spain, and so on.
Thank you, Shimon.
Shimon, wait, let me just respond to Shimon. I don't think we have to abolish Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, but we have to remember that Torah nitnet b'midbar, that the Torah was given outside of the land of Israel also, and that those two things are in tension, and that we need to be in dialogue with both of those. So we don't have to say it was given. We're not getting rid of that idea. That's a core value, but there's another core value that we can raise up as well.
Okay, get this.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Lisa, if you can answer, there is one question from the audience. If you can answer short. So Meshi Kopalovitz asked if do you think that the rising anti-Semitism influenced this process?
What I think, it's a good question. It's an important question. My heart says no. My head is, as a researcher, says I would want to study that to see. But in terms of, if you're asking, does it influence feelings of responsibility? I really don't know. I think that Americans are actually quite parochial and don't see anti-Semitism as so much as a global issue, but they see it as an issue within American society and are concerned about it on that level. They certainly see it globally, but the experience for most young Americans in particular who are seeing anti-Semitism more active for the first time, I think that they're processing that themselves in terms of their own experience.
Thank you, Lisa. So thank you, Shimon. Thank you, Lisa, for your willingness and effort. I think you opened many windows for learning opportunities, and I'm sure that everyone that listened to you will be rewarded for that, and hope to see you soon again, face to face or through the internet. But face to face is always better. So let's pray that next time it will be a real convention.
Amen.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon in the USA and good night here in Israel. Back to you, Rav and Michal.
תודה רבה, יובל וליסה ונבו שמעון.
וואו, הבטחנו פאנל מרתק, אני חושבת שקיימנו ממש. תודה רבה ליובל סרי, תודה רבה לפרופסור ליסה גרנט ודוקטור נבו שמעון וקנין. בתלמוד הבבלי, מסכת קידושין, דנים בשאלה מה גדול ממה. תלמוד גדול ממעשה, או מעשה גדול מתלמוד. ואנו אומרים, גדול תלמוד המביא לידי מעשה. לפיכך נסיים בקריאה, לא עליך המלאכה לגמור, ולא אתה בן חורין להיבטל ממנה. מתוך אבות, האחריות להתחבר ולהתחבר, מונחת על כתפיו של כל אחד ואחת מאיתנו. לסיום, אנחנו מבקשות להודות לכל העושה ולצוות המסור שעושה ימים כימים למען החיבורים, למען הכנס. תודה מיוחדת מקרב לב לצוות המחים במחוז תרבות יהודית ישראלית ולצוות המקצועי של רשת בתי הספר התאומים. לפני אנא דקה נוספת מלא משוב בין שלוש בלבד, משוב ידידותי, הקשור אליו מופיע בצ'אט מצד ימין. נמשיך לעסוק במלאכת החיבורים ופיתוח קשרים, בתקווה להיפגש פנים אל פנים וירטואלית בכנסים הבאים.
תודה מיכל, thank you Yuval and Professor Lisa Grant and Dr. Nevo Shimon Vaknin. At the Babylonian Talmud, there is a discussion about what is bigger, the study or the action. And we say a study is great when it brings to action. We'll close our conference with a call. The responsibility to connect and create connection is ours.